The hidden cost of owning a home, what they don't tell you. Hey, this is Jeff at Below Average. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. On this channel, we usually try to look at little savings of anything financial that we can do so you could take the difference of that money and invest it for your retirement. As I always try to say, let's try to see what we can do about working smarter, not harder. Not try to give up all your time and your life to the man, to the company you work for if possible. But this one's a slightly different, dealing with home ownership. Obviously, if you don't own a home, or if you're new into one, and you might have heard all you must have a home, this is the greatest thing in the world, and it's the American dream. And as true as all that is, you have to be prepared as far as if you're going into the home for the first time. Now, this obviously is going to apply to younger individuals who don't have a home. I'm hoping, folks, if you're in your, let's say your 40s, 50s, definitely in your 60s, that you're already in some kind of home, you're going that route. But if you're younger than that, this is the start off. This is to give you a true example of what my wife and I went through in our early 20s, having kids, and going from a mobile home or trailer into a house. This gives you a clear idea. Now, the first hurdle financially you need to look at is that if you happen to already be married, or if you're by yourself, you have to have a true look at your income and where you're at. So here's an example that's happening in my area now. So if you can apply this to you, this will give you a little example. Now, we have subdivisions, probably like everybody else, that have homes that are, $400,000 or $500,000 or more dollars, fancy, huge, big, gigantic. And then we have another level down in there. That's the subdivision. They're probably more like the 350 range. They're right in there. Then we have another one that I would say you're looking at 250 to 275, and then there's another one that's slightly older than that. That the homes are probably, they're like right around the 250 for sure. Really close to the bottom two. So if your income, here's the big one. If your income on paper, somebody tells you, a mortgage company tells you, say, hey, you guys make all kinds of money. You can end up affording this 350, 400,000, or maybe that crazy one. You see that fancy, everything's fancy, nice and big. You guys can afford all that based on your income. I mean, you're probably obviously making over 100 grand a year easily between both of you. But if you get told that, you even get told that, hey, you could end up going into that $350,000 home in that subdivision. But for a fact, two other subdivisions within a half a mile to a mile of that one have homes that are more that 250, 275, maybe a hair more than that right in there. And you were told on paper, and you think you're comfortable paying a $350,000 or $360,000, $70,000 home, don't do it. Go to those other subdivisions. You're young, you're starting off, go to the other subdivisions, and you'll easily then be able to get into one of those homes and have a much better perspective on the actual hidden cost that I'm going to get into, the hidden cost dealing with owning a home versus renting. Now, I have never rented in my life, and at the end of the video, I'll give you a tiny little bit on renting. I did a video months ago on home ownership versus renting. You can go look at that in the playlist, and I give you some true examples of people that I've worked with, both sides of the issue, both sides, and see what happens when they get close to retirement. But here, so I don't like on this one exactly. I don't have any idea on the renting. I don't know how. I know rent's crazy high. It feels like it's crazy to pay it. I don't know how the utilities work in some of those. I'm sure none of them are included, or very few. So besides the rent, you have all the other things involved. And then some people say, just get somebody else, rent. If you got a 2-bedroom, get somebody to split everything with you. Take a little of that if possible. If you're not married, the same thing with renting. If you got somebody that was split some rent with you in a apartment, maybe you can do the same thing in the house if you buy it. If you're not married. If you're married, don't do it. Stick with that scenario. But you go to the lower subdivisions to spend that money. So as you start going through this stuff, years later, if you're still making that kind of money 5 years, 8 years, 9 years later, and you want to make that big upgrade, you can look at it and go ahead then. But initially, don't do it. Cheapest home first. That's still in the same town, same area, if it's available. And I would think in most cities, counties in the United States, townships, that's the case. So you go there. You're obviously your initial part of the home is going to be cheaper because of the payment, and the taxes, the property taxes are going to be cheaper, so that helps out. And this is where we get into some of the hidden costs that if you go into a big home, everything that, if anything comes on up, everything obviously is so much more money, because you got more of everything. But if you look at strictly the maintenance costs on dealing with the home, things that you would never even think would happen, you're dealing with plumbing issues, maybe lighting issues, and you're dealing with like big structural issues like maybe a roof. It's possible, maybe a house, if you get in an older area because you got smart and you went to go cheaper first, maybe they don't have a garage and you want to end up doing that. That's a huge cost. Maybe you want to add a big shed because it's not there. That's a huge cost. These are things that are, I would say, are a little bit more of the hidden costs that can be pretty financial. But is what you do is, unless you're buying a home, one of those older ones, unless you're buying one that that you're getting such a crazy great price you feel for, because there is a lot of issues. Previous family couldn't afford it. Maybe they passed away, things kind of got left. But you're coming into it with a better deal. Maybe you're saving $30,000-$40,000, and you can just end up doing the work yourself or have somebody else do it. That's a great value. That can be a great value. Because you want the one thing that no one talks about at that point, when you hear other people, oh no, don't buy it, it's got to go buy a brand new one, don't worry about it. Here's the thing, when you buy that lot, your property taxes are less because you're paying less for the house. Yeah. Oh yeah. Possibly even the homeowner's insurance would be less, right? This would be a substantial savings over a period of time that nobody ever talks about. But if you do have those maintenance issues that you're looking into, which is going to be normal, that's no big deal. But if you don't find the big deal and you're paying regular price because the home has been updated, the one thing you for sure look for first is, how old is the roof? If it's a couple years old, great. Now 10 years old still isn't bad, but you're going to have to presume you're going to be doing something relatively in the near future. If it's definitely 15 or more years, you should try to get a reduced price on the home, because the one hidden tough one's going to be in there is possibly getting insurance, that homeowners insurance that will cover it. Or if they do, it's only going to be a few years and they're going to want you to put a new roof on anyways. So at least initially see if you can get lucky and find some home that's in that lower area that has replaced the roof, 5 years or less. If it's 10 years or less, you're just going to know you're going to have to do something. Same thing with the heating, and same thing with the cooling. How old are they? The older they are, the factor you're going to have to pay into that. Might have to have somebody come out and fix them. Might have to do stuff. Now, I'm talking about homes, say, built in the 60s or 70s and later, and some of this has already been updated. You shouldn't ever, unless there's a drastic thing, you should never have to go out and don't replace the furnace because this extra high efficiency bull crap that they talk about. If you got something back from the early 70s and it's never been replaced, well, that might be a little theory, maybe a little bit on that. But you get something that has been replaced, but it's still 20, 25 years old. Get it serviced. Don't have to replace it. It's going to have to be a big catastrophe. And don't listen to the one time if you have a person comes out and tells you that. Get multiple quotes on the same, see if the same thing comes on up. Because these idiots will end up trying to get you and soak you for every dime you can after the fact. But shouldn't have to replace something like that, because all those new ones from the 80s and 90s, all those are like high 90% efficiency stuff. You should not have to end up worrying about that. Now, they didn't make them like they used to, but just an example. Those are big costs that could come on up. And possibly if there is some that won't have any central air. I'm not saying to go out and get it. It is nice to have. But I tell you what, a couple window air conditioners with a good fan blowing, and you can target that to certain rooms. Much easier cost. You go buy it down the store. You can put it in your window. You don't have to have all this service stuff. So don't get too crazy if you think you have to go around doing that. And also, the big one, because when you're buying a home, that hidden cost is going to be the maintenance, the plumbing, all that stuff. Eventually, is what you have to do is find somebody locally in your area that will work on the side, work after hours, so you're not paying that crazy crazy price that these companies wanted to pay for a plumber, heating and cooling. And I guarantee you, you look around enough, all these people will be looking for secondary work. Save a ton of money. Plus, you'll get I get a little bit better when you have questions. You'll get better answers because they're not beholden to the company that they're working for. I have used that with my heating and cooling. When mine was back in the 70s, when I had that replaced, it was a guy who actually did that for a living, who then did it on the side. My cost was 50% less than going through one of these companies, just because of the crazy cost, the upcharge they do on the items themselves and the labor. So look for that first. Same thing with plumbing. That one can be a crazy one over time. If you're buying a home and you don't have, and it's not having a well, which most subdivisions won't, they'll have, city water, or we have a township water program. The one thing to do before you buy it is turn the water off in the basement, the main valve that would be coming from the city, and then go see if it actually shuts off. Because if it's been old enough, it might turn and do everything, but the mechanism inside won't work anymore. That's what, after being in our house for over 20 years now, our house is a little over 50 years old. That's what the problem we have with ours. So I'll have to have that whole mechanism replaced. But I know. So, it's that's one thing to look at, because 90% of anybody wouldn't even have ever turned it off. So make sure it actually works first, because if not, I don't think it's a huge cost, but that's something you can work on before you buy the home. Or later on, these are things that are going to come on up with a renter. You want to have that problem. If you had to turn the water off, they mess with that. They have to replace, shower valves, which I've had to do many a times. You got a septic pump in a house. That's going to have to get replaced off, I think I got to replace it again because ours just went out. That'd be 2 in, the 30 years or whatever we've been here. So high 20s, we've been here in the high 20s. So those are the hidden costs. And that's just not cost. Sometimes it's going to be time. So if you're somebody if you're working 60, 70 hours a week just to try to make it, that's going to be a little tough on that. Now you're younger, you can handle it, suck it on up and all that kind of stuff. And that might be a possibility. You'll have to do that. But these are the hidden costs. Those are just the basics. A roof, like I said, if it's good, just make sure that, if it's a 10-year-old, you're going to be looking, if it's 10 years old, you're going to be looking, insurance is going to try to make you replace it. I've had insurance companies that said they wouldn't insure us because our roof is old, and I helped put it on to begin with all those years ago, but it's too old. So we're having to look at that again now. And personal experience, that's what they'll tell you. They will know or find, and if they can't find out for sure, they can easily tell by the look on it and just call it no, yes or no, that type of thing. So those are a few of the larger, hidden costs that could possibly come around. Now you got all the little ones. So let's get into let's unveil the little ones that you think's no big deal, but it can be reoccurring. You got a yard, a lawnmower, a trimmer, a hedge trimmer, maybe a tree limb trimmer. All those 4 things cost money. And in my lifetime, the lawnmower, we went through 4 or 5, 6 of those things. They just seem like they burn out. All gas, they all seem to burn out. Now, the last couple I had were really old and already had issues. But those are things you have to look at. Maybe even the trimmer becomes an issue eventually. You have to get another one of them. So those are different costs versus if you're renting, you won't have to, or if you're in a condo, you don't have to. You got the fees, but these are things you don't have to worry about, any replacement. Another big one is the septic system. If it's not on city, if you don't happen to have city or township sewage, and like we have a tank that's got to get pumped out. If they've been around a long time, you never know when you're buying one of those homes where that could go out. No matter what they tell you, no matter what the company tells you that comes and pumps it out, if they think it's good, bad, ugly, or whatever, take it with a grain of salt. And definitely one of them, if they tell you that they don't think it's very good, get an explanation on that, because these people will say anything they do to get the previous owner to try to replace it because it's such a huge cost. So that's one thing to have to worry about. I have known of people who bought homes and within a handful of years their actual septic system went out, or because they didn't realize what they should be doing is you got to go buy the chemicals to put in there to work through that, and then make sure you pump it out every 3 to 4 years. And if it's an older home, I'd try for 3 years, at least the first time or two, to get a feel for, see how that is. And that is another hidden cost. Right now, to get our tanks pumped out, that's over $400. So the last time we went 4 years, this next one would probably be 3. And then the cost that you put in every month, $4, $5, $6 to $8, depending on what you're using. Hidden cost. So those are big ones. Lighting, light bulbs, different things go out in there, ceiling fans, all these things that come about all the time. I've been through a bunch of them. I've been through them all. It's just costs that keep coming. It keeps hammering you, and it seems like it feels like it keeps hammering you until you get a bunch of it taken care of. Then it feels like you get a time frame, you don't have to worry about it. But these are problems. If it's an old enough home, we had a big crack in the cement on one of our steps. Huge. Okay, we've lived with it for now, but eventually that's going to have to get fixed. I'm not talking about a little smooth over. I'm talking about a big crack and a drop just in the step. And so, these are tiny things. You get a leak in your roof, where it goes, it becomes an issue. You live in the winter states like we do. We've had that be a long time ago. If we didn't pull enough snow off the roof and it got too much, and then the heating and the cooling and everything just kind of, wax it out, it might leak in parts of the house. So you got to end up being on that all the time so it don't happen. And those are different things, we've seen, and it's how it is, because everything's older, everything shifts, moves. You got different things like that. So obviously pretty expensive. Another hidden cost, and the reason why not to buy one of those homes that you're going to spend $400,000, because almost every one of those places has one of those stupid HOAs, right? Homeowners Association. And if you're owning a home versus, say, a condo, you're owning a home in there, these people will be so anal about where your trash might go, to what are you planting in your yard? You can't, what those bushes look like. There might be you got to trim them down. Your yard isn't quite right. Now you're working 2 jobs to pay for things. You can't get on it. And all these people are just going nuts. And they can get to the point, it could get crazy. If you watch enough YouTube videos, you'll see enough crazy people or crazy associations with that. And especially if an outside company comes in and buys out that portion, they can end up enforcing all kinds of crazy stuff because they want to up the fee. They want to up the fees, because you know what? That's how they make money then. So I would stay away from those. Tell them to go stick it and be done with it. Now, if it's in an older condo association, you'll be able to see, possibly, I've never heard quite as much problems with those, because they're already paying a service to mow. Pretty much everybody knows you can't really plan anything else, especially if it's an older one. What's there is there. You might be able to replace. That's it. There's a bunch of stuff that you just don't have the room to even think about doing anyway. So it becomes that some of those crazy complaints, and not pulling your garbage out, that hopefully they might have a certain area where everybody, like on your condo street, will put the garbage at. It takes away all those chronic little complainers out there all the time, all the Karens running around, right? No, but that's one I haven't dealt with, but I know of people who are in those, and the bigger problems seem to be coming the fancy homes. So don't do it. You got that kind of money, go buy something like I mentioned on the lower bottom tier, those couple homes. You'll be fine. If you make that kind of money, you'll be able to treat those homes really nice. You'll be able to make them better than anything in the area, and you'll be able to do it by paying cash. Best thing to ever do. So I'd like to quickly check off a few things, because I want to make sure that I bring up a bunch of that stuff. Hidden costs too. Painting. You might get a home, you got to go in and repaint. You got carpet. Every so many years, you go get animals. 5, 10 years later, you notice that your carpets are trashed. All of a sudden, now you got to get more carpets. Now those issues in renting, I've heard all kinds of problems with that stuff like that. Don't expect to get your deposit when you leave. They're always going to say there's a problem, there's an issue. They're going to take that, and who knows, they might try to come after you with other things. So it's not a free ride either there, but it gives you a little bit of an idea. But obviously, if it's in your home, if you can afford to do it, or you got to save to do it, or do something like that, you can. You got time. That's the whole thing. You got some time. So that's another, but that's a big hidden cost, especially if you're Try to do stuff all the time. Another one, the size of the house. That's why you go for an older one that's slightly smaller. You don't need all that room. Screw that. Because every extra room you buy, you're going to have to buy furniture. You're going to have to, you got everything that deals with the room. You're going to have to refill it up. Some things eventually you're going to get rid of. You're going to donate and you're going to buy again and you buy new and you keep doing it. And next thing you know, you're just spending thousands of dollars after nothing just because you had the room to, you had the room there. Eliminate that. Go to the cheaper subdivisions, fancy up what you have. Try to be comfortable with it. Don't get crazy. Don't think about, oh man, I want to go down to those big old fancy homes. Unless you're crazy rich, never do it. Never do it. I don't care. Most of those people, they're panicking. They lose one job and they can end up being behind and be screwed easily. Those people are no different than people that are living in the other subdivisions because they got a bigger home, 2 vehicles out front, and they go out and spend all their money all the time like that. At the end of the month, most of them, they're barely making it too. They just have a few more things, but the one thing they have more stress. Eliminate the stress. But that's the other part of the, what they don't tell you on home ownership is if you get a little crazy on that end, it'll drive you crazy. Stick within where you're financially at, reduce down, and go from there. So let me try to wrap this up because this is becoming a longer video because I seem like I'm ranting more. But I'm giving you all the things that I have physically been through, I've physically seen, I've worked with people, I've heard their stories, and I see what's happening all the time. And I know what my wife and I are going through for all these times. Loss of jobs, running out of the country, out of the state, starting over, taking a big pay cut, all that kind of stuff. I've been through it all. So try to take at least a little bit of this down and then notate it and make sure you don't fall into the same stuff or you realize things can happen. So I didn't mention landscaping. Some people get into some crazy landscaping. That can be a big cost too, no matter what, especially replacing things every year. But if you happen to go to at least to the cheaper areas that you can easily afford, if you can easily afford those, that's it. If you can't and you still can get in, I would still say get into the home. But let me keep going through. Sorry about this. Utility cost. That's another one. That stuff can get expensive. I'm not sure what it is about renting, but I tell you, at least in a mobile home to a house, and the house was bigger than the mobile home, and the mobile home was newer than the house, the utilities in the house are cheaper. At least for what I experienced living in a mobile home and then going into a home. They are cheaper. They're still better efficient and everything else. And so at least that's a nice little savings that I didn't plan on. Let me look some other ones here a second for you. Mention like home decor, how that can keep going up. It's getting crazy. The other one definitely is property taxes and your homeowner's insurance. So when you first buy your home, you get those, at least if you see them, even if you think you're comfortable. The one thing you got to realize 5-10 years from now, those 2 items are going to be expensive. Now, in my area, you watch enough YouTube videos, you see all kinds of crazy stuff of people's rates doubling and tripling and stuff like that. I don't have any idea why any of that's happening, but I tell you, my experience where I'm at, it's usually a slow growth up. Now, I don't live in Florida or California. I don't live on the coast and the water that's where probably some of that's happening. So I'm talking about this channel, below average, be normal. We're trying to be normal here. But those are slow progressions all the way through. When I first got into this home, probably $1,500 a year range, probably property taxes. Now it's like 22, 23 for the year. So that's over, 20 something years. So it's went up a little bit. Definitely the other one is the homeowner's insurance. Originally was under $400 for the year. And now I'm up to like $1,200. So you see the progression, and while you're still making a payment, these things keep going up. Now, if you have rent, it's going to do the same thing. So it's kind of here or there. So I just wanted to give you some examples of some things out there. If you're somebody that's just happened to be thinking about this, looking at it, or if you're in your 30s or 40s and you bought your first home and you're thinking twice about it, at this point, at least, if you listen, hopefully you'll come up and see some of those ideas, see what's going on. But here's a tiny, tiny bit I'll mention here at the end, and then I'll be done. And this is the home ownership, the dream ownership of owning a home, what they don't tell you, it feels very negative. It seems negative. It's just something to be aware of. But I want to give you the example of whenever you buy your home. I'm hoping it's in your 20s, 30s, even if you're in your early 40s or whatever. By the time you get to retirement, late 60s, let's just say, I know people who are never bought a home that are still renting in then, and they're going to go and they're going to be paying these crazy rental prices while they're in retirement on Social Security, plus whatever else they sold, versus if they could have bought a home 20, 30 years before that, and before they retired had it paid off, and then you just owe the homeowner's insurance, and you own the property taxes you have to pay, and you still have some of the upkeep, but your payment will be like 50 to 75% less than anybody renting easily. Plus, at the time, if you're renting, zero value. If your home's paid off by the time you retire, hundreds of thousands. So, hey, that's all I got to say. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Let everybody else know other hidden problems with owning a home, so they can be aware and create some strategies for themselves and their families on what to do. So thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate it. Have a great day.